My mom joked if you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would miss you, and everyone laughed. So I pulled out my grandpa's new will revealed he left me everything and watched them begged me for forgiveness. Mom said it like a joke. If you disappeared tomorrow, nobody would miss you. Everyone howled. I didn't flinch. I just waited for the laughter to die and delivered my one line. Her smile collapsed. No one made a sound until when she said it. Something in me snapped, but I didn't show it. Not yet. I just stared at the plate in front of me, holding myself still while everyone around the table exploded with laughter. If you disappear tomorrow, nobody would miss you. That's what my mother said like a joke. Like it was the most normal thing in the world to say to your daughter in front of 20 people. My cousins laughed first, then my aunt followed. Uncle Greg was already tipsy and wheezing. Tyler, of course, didn't miss the chance to join in. They all thought it was hilarious. Even Dad cracked a smile and shook his head like, "Oh, that mom of yours. What a riot." I didn't flinch. Not because it didn't hurt. Of course it did. I just kept myself still because I knew what they didn't. In a few minutes, none of them would be laughing. They were going to regret every smug look they ever shot my way. The reunion had been going like it always did. People drinking too much, pretending to care about each other's lives, asking fake questions, while secretly judging every answer. I was used to it. I'd been the family punchline for as long as I could remember. The black sheep, the disappointment, the one who never quite fit in. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't even begin to guess, was that this summer was different. Everything had already changed. I waited until their laughter died down. I tapped my glass with a fork. Once, twice, heads turned, some still chuckling. My mom leaned back in her chair like she was already preparing her next jab. I stood up slowly and took out a folded document from my bag. No speech, no theatrics. I just laid it flat on the table right next to the salad bowl and a half-empty bottle of wine. "That's okay," I said. Grandpa would. Her expression dropped just like that. Her smile vanished as if someone had yanked it off her face. Everyone else quieted, too suddenly confused. Then I nodded toward the paper. "This is Grandpa's new will." People looked around like they were waiting for someone to tell them it was a joke. It wasn't. 2 weeks ago, Grandpa called me. He said he didn't like the way I'd been treated over the years. He said he was sick of watching his own family act like I was some stain they had to scrub out of every event. He wanted to fix it, so he did. He updated the will, left everything to me. The house, the land, the bank accounts, the cabin up in Vermont that everyone fights over every 4th of July. Everything. The document was signed, witnessed, notarized. I looked at my mom. "I'm not your burden anymore. I'm not your fallback, your doormat, or your favorite thing to humiliate. I'm done." Then I turned to Tyler, who was already starting to shift in his chair. "And you don't bother calling the financial aid office. Your tuition's not coming from me anymore. You're on your own." Dead silence. My aunt reached for the paper, but I moved it slightly away. "You don't need to read it. For real. It's final, and it's mine." I sat back down, picked up my fork, ate like nothing happened. No one said a word for several long minutes. Even Grandpa just stayed quiet in his chair under the tree watching them. That was the moment the family dynamic shattered. Right there at that picnic table with everyone in their Sunday best holding their plastic cups, blinking like someone had thrown ice water in their faces. And they had no idea what else was coming. They all sat there after I dropped the bomb. Some staring at their plates, others pretending to keep eating. Someone tried to change the subject. Something about traffic on the interstate, but it fell flat like everything else. The air felt thick, like they were waiting for someone to say it wasn't real, that I'd misunderstood something, that it was just a draft or Grandpa was confused. But he wasn't, and I hadn't. No one congratulated me. No one even said my name. It was like I didn't exist, which was ironic considering the joke that started it all. By the time the sun dipped low and people started leaving, the backyard had turned quiet. Not a relaxed kind of quiet, more like a funeral. Mom still hadn't come back outside since the will landed on the table. Tyler tried to act like he didn't care. Made a joke to our cousin Noah on the way out, but he didn't look me in the eye. No one did. I stayed behind to help Grandpa back into the house. He didn't say much, just patted my shoulder and told me to stay sharp. Then he went to bed like it was any other night. I didn't sleep. The next morning, before I even got out of bed, I had 4 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. Then a voicemail. "Hi, this is Denise over in Student Affairs at Fulton University. I received your request to cancel tuition coverage for Tyler Monroe for the fall semester. I just want to confirm it's correct and that you understand what it means for his enrollment status. Please call me back as soon as possible." I blinked at the ceiling. I hadn't contacted the school yet. I checked my email. No sent messages, no drafts, but someone had already emailed them using my name, apparently from an address almost identical to mine. One letter off of fake. They were trying to beat me to it, trying to make it look like I'd lost control. I spent the next hour locking everything down, passwords, security questions, phone verification. I deleted the old shared Dropbox account Tyler and I had used in high school, closed every trace of connection. Not even 2 hours later, my mother called. No greeting, just bitterness in her voice. "So you're really doing this?" I told her. I hadn't even sent the email yet that someone else had. Her answer was cold. "Maybe it's just karma." Then she hung up. By lunch, the stories had started. First on Facebook, then in group texts I wasn't in but heard about anyway. Somehow half the town already knew or thought they did. According to the version being passed around, I'd manipulated Grandpa into rewriting the will while he was losing his memory. That I'd pressured him, taken advantage of his age, that I turned him against his family. One post even hinted at elder abuse, like I'd kept him from seeing anyone until he signed everything over. Tyler posted a photo of himself sitting on the campus lawn with a cryptic caption. "Some people only love you when you're useful. Lesson learned." Mom commented with a row of crying emojis and a prayer hands emoji. Underneath that, my aunt wrote something about how you always know where the snakes are when the grass gets cut. I didn't respond, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't need to. They thought all I had was Grandpa's signature on a piece of paper. They thought if they poisoned my name fast enough, they could make it all crumble. What they didn't know was that Grandpa had recorded everything, every conversation, every change, every reason behind it. He had documents notarized and conversations witnessed. He hadn't been confused. He had been deliberate. And I had copies of all of it. This wasn't over. They had fired the first shot. They were about to find out just how far I was willing to go. By Monday morning, it was clear they weren't going to let this go. My phone buzzed nonstop. Notifications, unknown calls, messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. It wasn't just family now. The poison had leaked out into the rest of the world. The real surprise was how fast it happened. There was a Facebook post, some long, vague thing with just enough detail for locals to connect the dots. Not from my mom, not from Tyler, from my aunt. Actually, the one who always smiled at me a little too hard. She wrote about a heartbroken family and a vulnerable elder taken advantage of. No names, just enough breadcrumbs to send people digging. By noon, a Reddit thread popped up under a throwaway account. It didn't take long before someone guessed it was about me. Tyler had liked one of the comments. My mother commented a string of broken heart emojis under the original Facebook post, and that was enough for people to start messaging me directly, people I didn't even know. Someone sent a DM calling me a sick freak. Another said I'd rot. A third asked for my side, but it was clear from the phrasing that they weren't really interested, just fishing for something messier. The best part, I hadn't even told anyone outside the family yet. No public announcement, nothing. They did that themselves, and they were doing it fast because they were scared desperate. They were trying to get ahead of the truth. I drove to Grandpa's house that evening. I hadn't told him yet. I figured he'd hear it soon enough. But I wanted to tell him myself. He was on the porch, newspaper in hand, glasses halfway down his nose. I handed him my phone and let him scroll through the screenshots. He read them slowly. Then he shook his head. "They're playing a dirty game and they think you don't know how to fight back, but I did." What they didn't realize was that Grandpa had started preparing for this months ago. He had more than just a new will. He had documentation, receipts, transcripts, even a few recorded phone calls. He never said he was doing it for me. He just said he was tired of watching people pretend to be something they weren't. He said it like it was about legacy, not revenge. But I saw the way he looked at me after he handed me that folder. He knew this day was coming. I left his house and went home, expecting to have a quiet night to finally figure out my next step. Instead, I got a motion alert from my apartment security camera. Motion detected. Living room. 8:41 p.m. I opened the app immediately and watched the clip. Someone in a hoodie entered head down, moved fast straight to my desk. They stayed for 5 minutes, then left. Never looked at the camera. No sign of a break-in, no damage, just a key. I sat there staring at the screen and it clicked. There was only one other person who'd ever had a key to that apartment. Tyler, back when he couldn't afford a hotel during spring break, and I let him stay with me. I checked my email. Nothing looked out of place. But the next morning, someone posted screenshots of my private messages on Reddit. Old ones taken completely out of context. Screenshots of me venting, talking about how toxic family gatherings were. How Grandpa said once that Mom only called when she needed something. And the post made it look like I'd been scheming for months. That's when I stopped reacting and started preparing, because that folder Grandpa gave me had more than a will. There were time-stamped transcripts of a phone call between my mother and Uncle Greg, dated a full month before the reunion. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. They were talking about me about getting Grandpa's affairs sorted out before I got involved, about how to make sure Hazel doesn't touch any of it, and most importantly, they said one thing I'll never forget. He's old enough not to notice if we move things around early. They were already planning to go behind his back. I will just beat them to it. I took that transcript straight to my lawyer, along with the security footage, along with the email from the university, confirming someone tried to impersonate me. He didn't even blink. "Let them talk," he said. "Then we'll talk louder." But I had something better in mind. Tyler had made himself the voice of the family side of the story, posting, sharing, hinting, stirring people up like he was some kind of betrayed little brother. So I paid him a visit and I brought the transcript. I didn't call ahead. I didn't text. I just drove to the apartment Tyler was staying in, one of those furnished student complexes with the fake stone walls and overpriced rent our parents had been covering since his freshman year. When he opened the door, he looked smug for exactly 2 seconds. Then he saw the envelope in my hand. "Relax," I said. "I'm not here to fight." He didn't invite me in, but I walked in anyway. His roommate wasn't home. The living room was cluttered with empty cans and a gaming chair parked in front of a giant TV. His laptop was open on the kitchen island. Read it still on the screen. I dropped the envelope next to it. "Go ahead, read it." He didn't touch it at first. He stood there like he was trying to decide whether to lie or pretend it was nothing but curiosity got him. It always did. He unfolded the transcript. I watched his eyes move over the words, saw his lips part slightly when he hit the second page. The line about moving things around early, the part where Mom said, "We'll make sure Hazel doesn't touch a cent. She can barely manage her own life." Then the third page, the page that had his name on it, because what Tyler didn't know was that Grandpa had recorded everything, including a phone call between Grandpa and my mom 2 months ago. Tyler's tuition came up. Grandpa had said he wasn't going to pay it anymore. He'd said it was time for Tyler to start standing on his own. My mom begged. She even mentioned taking out a loan in Grandpa's name if it came to that, and Grandpa said no. I included that too. I watched Tyler's face change. Not immediately, not dramatically, just enough for me to see it. Something cracking behind the eyes. He'd built this whole version of the story where I was the villain and he was the wounded one. But now he was realizing that not only had I beat him to the truth, but Grandpa had never been on his side. He tried to laugh it off. "This is fake." I told him it wasn't, and that there were more copies at my lawyer's office in a digital vault at Grandpa's attorney's office. I wasn't here to threaten him. I was here to give him a choice. Keep going, keep pushing lies, keep trying to turn people against me, or stop. Walk it back. Because I wasn't just holding a transcript. I was holding the end of his credibility. And if it went public, he'd be the one answering for it. His silence was all I needed. I left without another word. The next day, the Reddit thread was gone, deleted. His cryptic post disappeared. Mom locked her Facebook account. Aunt Kara made her profile private. The group chat I'd been excluded from suddenly shut down. But that wasn't the unexpected part. The unexpected part came later that night when my dad showed up at my door. He hadn't said a word to me during the reunion, barely even looked at me, but now he was on my doorstep with a bag in his hand and a look on his face I hadn't seen since I was a kid. He handed me the bag. Inside was an old jewelry box. My grandmother's, the one my mother had claimed was missing for years. Dad said one thing before he left. "You're not the only one who's tired of her." That's when I realized things were breaking in more places than I thought. And this wasn't about inheritance anymore. It was about truth. And some people weren't ready for it for 3 days. It was almost eerily calm. The Reddit thread vanished. Mom locked her Facebook account. Tyler deleted his cryptic posts. My phone went silent. It looked from the outside like they'd retreated, but I knew that silence. It wasn't peace. It was the kind of stillness you get when a storm pulls back just enough to gather power. On the third night, Grandpa called. His voice was steady, but there was something under it. "You should come over tonight." When I walked into his house, the porch light was off. Inside, Dad was sitting at the kitchen table, a half-empty mug next to him. In front of him lay a folder thick enough to make my stomach tighten. Grandpa sat in his recliner, his glasses on, eyes sharper than I'd seen in weeks. Dad didn't even look up at first. He just pushed the folder toward me. Inside were bank statements, withdrawal slips, emails, loan applications, all signed by my mother. For months, she'd been trying to take out a line of credit against Grandpa's house before the will changed. She'd even approached a different bank when the first denied her. On the third page was an email from Greg to her about moving assets before they get locked. And on the fourth page, The one that made my hands actually shake was an email from Tyler sent from his university account. He wasn't just aware. He was actively following up with a bank officer, clarifying his mother's intentions and asking for an expedited review. Dad finally spoke. She left all this sitting in a drawer like I wouldn't notice. I looked up at him. This was the man who had stood by silently at every family gathering while I took the hits. The man who told me to let it roll off more times than I could count. Now his face was different, harder. "I've filed for legal separation," he said flatly. "And my lawyer has already sent the bank a notice about attempted fraud." Grandpa leaned forward. His voice was low but deliberate. "Now you understand why I changed the will." I left his house with the folder pressed against me. In my car, I sat there for a long time staring at it. All these years, they'd acted like I was the weak one, like I needed them. And all along, they were the ones running games behind closed doors. When I got home, another surprise was waiting. An email from the university. Due to new information submitted by the Monroe family, a temporary hold has been placed on Tyler Monroe's student account, pending investigation. I read it 3 times. They turned on him. Either the bank tipped the university off or Dad's lawyer had already started the process. Whatever it was, it had happened without me lifting a finger. By noon, Tyler was blowing up my phone. All caps accusations demands. He wanted to know what I'd done, how I'd ruined his life. But I hadn't done anything. Not yet. And for the first time in my life, Tyler was the one being whispered about. The one with his future slipping, the one who couldn't get an answer from anyone, the black sheep. But what no one knew, not Grandpa, not Dad, not even my lawyer, was that there was one last file in my possession. Grandpa had handed it to me separately in a sealed envelope with my name on it. He told me to keep it quiet until the time was right. It wasn't a transcript. It wasn't a recording. It was something far more explosive. Something that if I used it would end any doubt about who had been telling the truth all along. And now with the family scrambling and Tyler on the edge, I realized the time was almost here. One more move. That was all it would take to flip everything they'd built and leave them standing in the wreckage of their own story. I waited 3 more days, not because I was hesitating, because I wanted them to think I would, that maybe I'd cooled off, maybe the worst had passed. Tyler stopped texting. Mom hadn't tried calling me since the night Dad served her with papers. Greg was suddenly silent, which said a lot considering he was the one always trying to sound like the voice of reason after everything blew up. But none of them knew what I was holding. The document was just 6 pages neatly typed, dated, signed, witnessed. It wasn't from Grandpa's lawyer, it was from his accountant. It detailed a financial transfer he made 6 months before the will was changed. A large sum, 7 figures, moved into a private trust for me. It had nothing to do with the house, the cabin, the land, the savings, or the investments. It was separate, independent, protected. He'd set it up quietly, naming me as the sole beneficiary, just in case the will ever got contested. The trust couldn't be touched, couldn't be undone, and it had already matured. The best part, no one else knew it existed, and that was the card I played. I waited until the next family mediation meeting, the one organized by my mother's attorney. Once she realized Dad wasn't bluffing and Grandpa wasn't coming to her rescue, they wanted to talk things out to clarify misunderstandings. I agreed on one condition: that the full family be present. All of them, Greg, Tyler, and Kara. Everyone who'd had a hand in trying to ruin me. We met at a neutral office, stiff furniture, fake plants, and a lawyer who looked like he hated everyone in the room equally. Tyler showed up in a hoodie, looking like he hadn't slept. Mom came dressed like she was going to church. Greg wore a smug expression that vanished. The second I placed the document on the table and slid it toward the center. They didn't recognize it at first. Then Greg picked it up, scanned the first few lines, and froze. Tyler leaned over to look. His mouth moved slightly as he read, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "What is this?" my mother asked. "That's the money Grandpa already gave me 6 months ago before any of this started." I looked directly at her. "You've been chasing the wrong thing. You could burn the will tomorrow and it wouldn't matter. This isn't about the house. It never was." She opened her mouth closed. It looked at the lawyer like he could undo the last 10 seconds. He couldn't. I stood up. "You called this meeting to get ahead of something, but there's no point in pretending anymore. Everyone here knows what they said, what they tried, and what it cost them." Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear. And now I continued, "You can decide how you want this to go, quiet or public. That's the choice." I didn't threaten. I didn't raise my voice. I just walked out and left them sitting there. Later that night, Grandpa called. "You handled it," he said. I told him I had no interest in dragging it further, but they wouldn't be dragging me either. Not anymore. And that was how it ended. Tyler dropped out of school 2 months later, moved in with a friend out of state. I heard through someone that he was working nights and trying to reapply somewhere new. My mom stopped coming to family events. Greg stopped getting invited. Me. I kept the house, the land, the trust, but more importantly, I kept my name, my spine, my place. No one mocked me anymore. The black sheep wasn't black after all.